Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Change Again podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me are.
Rush 2112.
And Wolf.
And today we are asking a question that we are probably going to get a straight answer from anyone who's a fan of this franchise. Are Stoick and Valka good parents?
They're somewhere in there.
They are parents.
Some, yeah, they are parents. Great, great. That's the episode. Thank you for listening. But I've seen a lot of people discuss this, especially with Valka, that they might not be that that good parents. But there's also another reason why we're asking this question. Someone brought up the fact, if you guys are you guys aware of like a YouTube persona called the Mysterious Mr. Enter?
No.
Heard the name before, but not seen anything.
Well, he brought up a good point that a lot of parents in animated movies or TV shows are usually not that good. Are usually not good. Not they're not good parents. Let's go with this. And he brought up How to Train Your Dragon in that fact. Specifically Stoic, not much Valka, but he did bring up an interesting point that a lot of animated parents are usually stereotypes of what kids see, of how kids see their parents, or they're either idiots. Again, depends on the project, but it, it was an interesting point, and I thought about, let's ask this question. Are Stoick and Valka bad parents? And just before we start this, let's make something clear. Just because we say Stoick or Valka are bad parents doesn't mean we think they're bad characters per se. Again, there's a difference. Kind of like good villain doesn't mean good character, bad, you know the drill. So just if we think they're bad parents, it doesn't mean they're good. It doesn't mean they're bad characters. Got this out of the way. Let's get started. So
yeah, before we start, I think it's an interesting argument to put forward, like all animated parents are bad parents. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of funny, like getting this topic and taking some time to think about it to a degree. I think it's actually kind of funny that, we think all animated parents are bad parents because, the fact of the matter is, all parents are bad parents.
well,
it's fact.
it's not
What
necessarily.
are
It's
you,
not
a
necessarily
moody
that.
teenager, Wolf?
No, like here's the thing, right? Like parenting is an extremely.
I can
Go
just
ahead.
imagine. I just started to imagine Wolf as an XT teen. Like, yeah, sure, we're doing a podcast about how to turn dragon. Nah, let's get this over with.
Get off my case, Mom.
Sorry, Wolf.
Anyways, but seriously, like, in all seriousness, though, like, right, parenting is an extremely hard job. If there are any parents watching this show, I guarantee you 100% of them would outright be more than happy to admit they screwed up doing that job because there's no way to do it perfectly. You're going to
Yeah,
screw up.
yeah, but
And
here's the.
well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Finish.
think it and I think that's why we see animated characters and animated parents as terrible parents because that reflects, right? Like how you're raised when you go to create something that's going to reflect into what you create to a degree. So you're going to see these bad parents because no parent is perfect. You're going to screw up. It's impossible to be super mom or super dad 100% of the time.
Yeah,
Of course,
this
but
kind of goes into one of my arguments, but we'll save that for
But
the.
I find it kind of funny though, personally.
yeah, but I will
Yeah.
say this in order to protect the specific point we're talking about. No person is perfect, and yeah, every parent ever will probably say they screwed up at some point. There was there has to be one point where you were not the perfect parent. But here's the difference. There's a difference between making a mistake, between, let's take the most classic example of an animated parent, Homer Simpson, that you pretty much strangle your child every time he says something you don't like. Or just being
That's an
an
extreme
outright.
caricature, though.
But when they say animated parents, animated parents like in TV shows, they usually talk about the ones who are written badly, and it is something that's hard to get right because maybe some of the people who write these characters are parents, or so they inject some of their own problems into this. But
But
there's sometimes there's a difference between making a mistake in real life and like repeating a mistake in the animated form.
there's also,
Especially because parent characters usually. I'm sorry, Rush. I didn't finish my point because animated parents, if you noticed, usually have like these characteristics to them that like they never listen to the kids. They like even if the kid is trying to tell them something, they will never listen. And some of them are portrayed as idiots. Like I said, Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, Danny
there goes my
Phantom
goddamn
Zed.
point.
The Turners.
Yeah, the Turners are not necessarily idiots. It's just they don't care like at all, unless it's necessary to the plot of the episode.
I mean, I think they care. They just don't pay attention. They're not very observant parents.
If I had a kid and he had fairies, I would find out at one point. I want to believe, anyway.
Maybe you wouldn't.
Maybe. Anyway, Rush, you wanted to say? Sorry for cutting you off.
Well, I mean, you pretty much already covered it. I was just gonna say most of the notable parents are stupid and used for comedic effect, which honestly that bothers me the most. So like you said, Homer. Well, of course. Well, if it's always been part of the character, maybe. So Homer Simpson has always been portrayed as dumb, but he can be caring sometimes. Peter Griffin actually started off being really caring father, and now he really doesn't care that much. And then sometimes he has some moments. And then the one that bothers me the most is the early days of South Park. Randy Marsh was actually was notably smart and pretty, caring and somewhat, but now he acts just like a kid almost every single episode, and like they really just tone down his character a lot. So I feel like a lot of the reasons dad characters are portrayed or like viewed as dumb is because these people have toned down their characters. They really don't put them in the shoes that they're supposed to. Because I mean, I guess most people would think that's boring. I don't know. So they're either...
It is worth pointing out, like a lot of the Family Guy, South Park, Homer, The Simpsons, American Dad.
TV shows, by the way. I
mean, not
movies
just the TV shows.
Movies don't really give you too much chance to notice, like, if they're super goofy or dumb.
It's not so much that they're TV shows. It's that also those are very much comedy shows. So they're going to portray characters in extreme caricatures. These are like the extreme side of that caricature. Doesn't necessarily mean that people like that don't exist, but it is to the nth degree.
But the stereotypes are, for the most part, it's either the idiot or the asshole. Like, and it doesn't seem like this is a cliche that wants to really die. Like, I mean, look at Moana, which is a year old now, and just to be clear, I like the movie fine, but let's face it, Moana's father is an asshole for no reason, to be honest.
He doesn't want to lose his daughter.
Yeah, but
I haven't seen the movie, so I can't say.
I barely.
But
have seen the movie,
there's
only because my niece just loves the movie to death, and she's less than 2 years old, and her most said word is Moana.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's just like Moana when she wants to watch it, and then when we're watching it, Moana or Maui, she'll say Maui, and
Oh.
Tafiti. It's adorable, but it gets annoying after like this second
Yeah,
time.
I can imagine that at first it was like, oh, how adorable, and it's like, oh my god, just stop.
Yeah.
The point where when you're actually wishing your little niece or something will actually sing "Let It Go." Anyway, jokes about this
Well,
aside.
real quick, because of that, like every time I can tell whenever my sister and niece are at my parents' house because my Netflix account is on the TV, so I'll go onto Netflix and oh, there's Moana at the front of my recently watched. It's like, oh, hey, looks like my sister and niece. So
Well, you can be happy that Disney are apparently opening their own Netflix, so it won't be there anymore.
yeah,
Anyway, to those of you who forgot, this is the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. So let's actually, because we are having a topic about other animated parents and everything.
We
So
turned into the How to Parent cast there for a minute. None of us know
yeah,
how.
parenting 101 by people who are not parents. This will probably sell well. Anyway, so Stoick and Valka, do you guys think they are good parents or bad parents? Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start. Because I missed
Go
last
ahead.
week. Excuse me.
Go,
Sorry. Uh,
go ahead.
so I think Stoic is a great parent. The older I get, and I'm drawing from personal experience, the more I look back and think, all those times my dad annoyed me with trying to do stuff, it's like he just really wanted to spend time with me. And I did a lot of times spend time with him, but you always feel bad. If you wanna cry, listen to a song by Harry Chapin called "Cats in the Cradle." Yeah, that'll make you cry if you didn't have a good relationship with your father. Anyway, um, so Stoic's standpoint, and I'm gonna pull this from purely the first movie because the second movie, it kind of follows the same way, but he's really a lot nicer and he listens a little bit better. And um, actually, I can get the second movie out of the way. Like he approves of his son outwardly, he loves his son outwardly, and the only time he doesn't listen, quote unquote, is when it was Drago Bloodfist, and that was actually, as we see, that was a reasonable expectation to do that because not listening to his dad gets his dad killed. So spoiler alert, sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
but that's actually a point we will bring up. Stoic does give his life to save his son. So
Absolutely. So
that's
yeah,
that's like 5 points in the bank for good.
yeah. But that also goes on to my other point. So he's always, which throughout the whole movies, he's always trying to protect his son. Like you may think he's being an asshole, but he's just trying to protect his son for every single point in every single movie. Um, in the first movie, he says, "What are you doing outside? Get back inside." I mean, that's like, he can't handle the dragons clearly. And I mean, he gets annoyed with his son because he's just trying to prove himself, but he's not listening in the same way that Stoic doesn't listen to him. But he has reason to not listen. His son is small. Dragons are killing machines. They took his wife, so he has every reason to believe that they can do the same to his son. And that's his last real. First off, that's, as most fan fiction goes, that's his last remembrance of Valka, his son, and it's his last family. I mean, I agree with those wholly. It's just how things go. So, excuse me. He goes up in that book because he's really just trying to protect his son in every sense. I mean, again, you say not listening. That's really a standard parent trait. And I feel like this, again, goes to the side of he knows what he's doing in Dragon Phase, so he definitely has to say there. The only time that he goes down is when he disowns his son. Sure, it's a little bit emotional for him. Times like, oh, you're siding with dragons. Like, that's the things we've been fighting, the things that killed your mom. How could you? Kind of makes sense, but it's still a little extreme. So that's where it goes down. Valk, on the other hand, giving her a solid D- on the parenting scale. She left and she left, and she wanted to come back, but she didn't. And she's honestly, the whole second movie is her just trying to win back her son's approval, and through like dragons, and that's just it. Like she really doesn't.
I mean,
seem
as of right now, she's not going to be on any Mother of the Year lists.
absolutely. Well, hey, D minus, that ain't getting you. That gets you the Mother of the Year.
Maybe
You
on
have to review the
you
book.
know, Wolf, Mother of the Year is not necessarily a good thing. There could be a worst Mothers of the Year lists.
Well,
She
she's
could
not.
probably make it.
She's not getting that either. I'd say. Let's be honest. But,
So she's on the meh Mothers of the Year.
yeah, she's
Gotcha.
on the. She's on the Where's My Mother of the Year. But yeah, so she basically, I mean, she does care for Hiccup when he comes. It's just that she instead of trying to talking to him and stuff like that, she just let me show you, and it's really stuff that Hiccup already knows about dragons. But it's just, I mean, it's cool and right, but you know, she still doesn't listen to him. You know, we can go talk to Dragon together. Doesn't listen. She has reason to believe that too. But nobody really ever. She doesn't really ever tell him why. She's like, no, there's no talking to Drago. Okay, why? At least Stoick had a reason. Drago's this is a madman. He tells him the story too, but you know, Valka's just like, no. Why? Just no. So she's not.
Well,
But that's not. I mean, that's the thing. Like she, like for Stoick, cares enough to actually tell him in the end, but Valka doesn't tell him like what she's seen, what she's fought. So that's where it just goes downhill for me.
mhm.
Anyway, next.
Next. Okay, so yeah, actually, Wolf, that's yours. What do you think?
Looking at Stoic, I would say Stoic is absolutely, he's not the perfect father. There's definitely communication issues. There's definitely there's definitely a misunderstanding between him and his son, but he's still a really good father. And you can see, just look at the first movie and you can see that. I mean, his leniency, his allowances, the sheer independence he allows Hiccup, the fact that even despite their differences, Hiccup still looks up to him as a chief and feels that he needs to live up to him. The fact that he managed to raise Hiccup into a decent and compassionate human being whilst juggling being a chief, right? Like, he's definitely a good parent. And it's worth remembering also, right? Like, in the first movie, like, we have no idea, nothing. We know nothing about Hiccup's mom. We know nothing about Valka. She's never even mentioned in the first movie. It's worth it.
The exception of the breastplate. That's
the helmet. That's it. But again, that's the only mention made, so you have no clue what happened to her. So you assume at that point that she is dead. And the reason I bring that up is because Stoic might come off as being a jerk to his son, but he's really not. Like Rush said, he's extremely overprotective of Hiccup. Like, it's worth remembering the way they introduce kind of the first movie and everything. You have this setup where Hiccup, it's fairly obvious Hiccup has wanted to try and go out and kill dragons and be outside during the raids for a long time, and he's consistently, probably more than likely, badgered Stoic about it. And Stoic has always said, no, I'm not letting you do this. You're not allowed to go out there. It's not safe for you, and all these sorts of things, right? And that's not someone who doesn't care about his. And I feel that's someone who doesn't. That's not someone who doesn't care about his son. That's someone who definitely cares about his son a lot, because he wants to keep his son safe. He wants to protect his son. He doesn't want to lose his son. And it's also worth pointing out as well, Hiccup disobeys Stoic, like most kids will do, disobey their parents, and goes outside anyways. And at the end of it all, he does almost get killed by a dragon, and he also ends up creating quite the mess and royally screws up. but Stoic doesn't like do anything major to him other than give him a stern talking to in front of the village. That's pretty much his punishment. After that, he's led back to the house, and that's it. And then Stoic goes off. It even says, I'm going to go clean up your mess. Like, it can come off as he doesn't respect his son, and you can definitely argue that point, I suppose. But I feel it's not that. It's more so he cares a lot about his son, and yes, he doesn't necessarily 100% know how to connect with his son, nor does he 100% understand his son. And there's definitely communication issues there on both sides. Again, signifying that Stoic isn't the perfect parent, but he's still a really good parent because he cares about his son a lot, and he's done so much for his son in terms of, his allowances, his leniency, his allowing Hiccup to be as independent as he is. Stuff that I would say is definitely becoming of a good parent. Now, looking at Valka, however, right? I've argued in the past that I don't feel she is a good parent. And that's simply because, she had the choice to go back and she chose not to. She willingly chose not to go back to be with her son and her family. And I mean, and again, like the movie doesn't split any hairs about that. The movie makes no allusion to the fact that that was a bad choice. The movie doesn't try and convince you, oh no, she made an okay choice. That was the right choice. No, the movie doesn't try to convince you of that. The movie expects you to come to your own conclusion to that. And the movie expects you to come to the conclusion that no, it's not a good choice. She made a wrong choice. As a parent, she wasn't that good of a parent. She was definitely not a great parent. I think it's worth noting, though, that we've not seen the third movie yet, and there's definitely a chance for her to come up as a parent, to actually try and become better and do better as a parent. And I full well expect to possibly see some of that from the third movie to some degree. Whether I necessarily want it or whether it necessarily needs to be there or not is a different story and a different topic, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it. And so because of that, some of my judgment on Valka could definitely change and there's no guarantee that what I say now is what I'll believe even after the third movie. That opinion could easily change after seeing the third movie and how she acts in the third movie. But as it stands
I have
right
a feeling
now,
that after How to Train Your Dragon 3 comes out, we could probably redo this entire podcast with
at least
that,
regarding
with that
Valka
in mind.
anyways.
Yeah,
But
and Drago maybe.
true. But I would say she's not the greatest parent. She definitely has a lot of work to do to even be recognized as a decent parent as of right now. But there's a chance for her.
Sacrifice 2.0.
There you go. That's how you do it. But yeah, I would say you could find worse animated parents.
Absolutely.
Okay, so congratulations, you guys pretty much covered everything, so I don't have much to say on this one, but I will bring up something. You guys said already that Stoic doesn't necessarily listen to Hiccup in the first movie, and that's one of the reasons people bring him up in the most animated parents suck. However, one point I do want to bring up, and I saw people bring up while mentioning Stoic in this context, is that the reason Stoic doesn't listen to Hiccup and what makes him woke as opposed to other fathers who doesn't listen to their kids in animated movies, I'll get to one of those in a second. The thing that makes him woke and relatable is that his son goes against everything he's been educated to. Like the entire thing with the dragons. You can tell that this is how he was raised. He was raised to believe that these creatures are evil, and like Wolf or Rush, I think it was Rush, who said, yeah, these dragons stole his wife, and as far as he's aware in the first movie, probably killed her. So he has a bit more. he has a bit more of a believable motivation to not listen to Hiccup, and I will also say that as a character, and that helps in this case, he's a lot more three-dimensional than a lot of animated parents. Like when he disowns Hiccup, I said it once, I'll say it again because this is a great moment. You can tell that it hurts him. You can tell that he didn't want to do that, but he has no choice. Okay, he has a choice, but you know what I mean.
It was an emotional high. It was spur of the moment.
Yeah.
You can
it was
see that scene and absolutely feel and believe like he would come back later and probably apologize to his son. Like you can feel like that's something he would probably do and you would expect to see him do it. But at that moment, you can understand why he made the decision and why he
Exactly.
did what he did.
Especially if he didn't do it in front of any witnesses.
Whether you agree with it or not isn't the case.
Yeah.
It's you can
That's a different
understand
story.
his mental state at that
I
point.
want
You can
him to kill
understand
Hiccup
why he
there.
did it. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
It was
so
He should have,
that's
but-
my
Yeah, very lenient. Way too lenient.
so that's my 2 cents on Stoic because you guys pretty much covered it all too well. In terms of Valka, like I said, I can understand why she never came back to Berk, but at the same time, it doesn't
can't.
change the.
It
Again,
was-
but here's the thing. Here's the thing about this.
I mean, I take that back. Like I can I take that back. Like I've said in the past, I can understand why she makes the decision, but it's definitely not a good decision. But I can understand
No,
why
it's
she
not-
makes the decision, and I can understand why
not a
she thinks it's good.
Okay, it's not a good decision, and while I can see why she didn't do it, I also need to keep in mind that I'm a How to Train a Dragon nerd who knows all about the lore of this. Like, if I show this to a random, if I like give a basic Valka description to a random dude or gal who's not aware of this franchise at all, they'll probably say, "Man, she's the worst mother of all time." If I'll give just a quick version of this without any of the lore or information. So
And they wouldn't be wrong in saying that.
yeah, I'm not saying they're wrong.
Oh,
On
yeah,
the
no.
contrary, I'm justifying this. I'm
Mhm.
saying that have knowledge of a lore in order to make a case for someone is usually not that good of a case. How actually no. Yeah, so Valka is not a good mother. Like she tries to be, and I think Serpent's Air kind of build into something in the future that she is trying to be a mother to Hiccup and help him in his especially now when he's chief and everything. She is trying, but leaving your child for 20 years and not even checking on him at least once, it's kind of an like, yeah, you're not getting any mother awards. Like, call Super Nanny. You need her now. So yeah, I'll give Stoick a B and Valka will get a D plus. Yeah, seems right to me.
All right.
Yeah, I should probably bring it up real quick as well. I've talked in the past about how I dislike how Valka and Hiccup's relationship is portrayed by the second movie. And that opinion hasn't changed. I know I didn't bring it up, and I know I said I still think Valka has the potential to be a good parent. But I still believe that I still believe that the second movie poorly handled the portrayal of Valka and Hiccup's relationship and that first meeting and how they went forward with that. I still believe it was not handled as well as it could have been by the second movie and the writers. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I think Valka can't be a good mom, or that she's, incapable of being uplifted, right, and coming back and doing better. And I should probably clarify that point real quick. And also, I would like to bring up a moment from the first movie that I think really signifies how much of a good parent Stoick is, because it shows that he can learn, that he can that he does try with Hiccup, and that's the fact that he eventually, think of the first time in the first movie you see Stoic. It's when he's fussing at Hiccup after he saves him from the monstrous nightmare, and he sees the mess that he makes, and he's lecturing him. Then think of the second time you see Stoic. It's when he finally tells Hiccup, all right, you can go train dragons now.
Actually, no. The second time we see him is when he talks to
With
Gobber about.
Hiccup, though. The
With
second time
Hiccup
you see him
and
with
stuff. Yeah,
Hiccup.
okay.
Well,
Okay.
Those are
that's
the
the
two
third
times
time,
in the
because
movie.
we see the first time is when he pulls him out of the dragon's fire. What are you doing outside?
I'm rolling that all
Yeah,
into
that's
the same
actually
first
an
scene,
interesting point. That's actually an interesting point. We don't really know, like watching this blind, you don't really know that Stoic is Hiccup's father until the moment he saves them from the monster's nightmare and he tells them, "Sorry, Dad." That's so when you first
Excuse me.
so when you first see them together, you're just thinking child chief. That's really all there's to it.
But the reason I bring that up is because Stoic eventually, the way they set the movie up at that point, you're led to believe that Stoic spends, after his talk with Garber, he spends a long time probably debating with himself and going back and forth and trying to figure out, should I allow him to do this? If I allow him to go into the training, he very might likely die. Am I willing to take that risk? Is that something I'm okay with? He definitely debates a lot about that. And
you even hear about that just when he's talking with Gopper. Like, what am I going to do? Put him in the dragon? He'd be killed before you let the first dragon out.
Mm-hmm. And so, and you can, and because of that, you can expect that and assume that he probably spent the rest of that time when we didn't see him, when we were with Hiccup throughout that day, debating all of that and deciding all of that. And eventually he decides, all right, I'm going to let you try this. I'm going to put faith in you. I'm going to trust you. And, that's Stoic learning. That's Stoic trying to be different, trying to bond with his son in some way. Hiccup obviously doesn't want to fight dragons anymore at that point, and he does have his reasons, and Hiccup isn't wrong, but that doesn't make what Stoic's trying to do at that point any less of being a good parent. To Stoic, that's going, he's dumbfounded by this sudden change in his son, who's wanted to for most of his life fight and kill dragons. All of a sudden he doesn't want to. He's dumbfounded and he's terribly frustrated about it. And so that's they're both stubborn people, Stoic and Hiccup both, and it's worth remembering that. And that stubbornness shines through for both of them right then and there at that point, especially for Stoic, because he can't honestly believe that Hiccup has changed his mind about this. So he insists that, no, go do this. This is what you wanted. I'm giving you this. I'm putting my faith and trust in you. I'm trying here. Why aren't you trying? There's definitely, that's like, for me, that's an example. That's a perfect example of trying to be a good parent, but also, again, being what a parent is in the real world. You're not perfect at it. You're going to fail. Even when you think you're doing the best possible thing, you're probably screwing up in some way as well, to some degree, possibly. Again, it's hard, extremely hard. And that's why I think for How to Train Your Dragon, Stoic is a great example of a good parent in terms of being a good parent and also failing at being a good parent.
I think we really actually knocked out pretty much a later
to a degree maybe,
topic,
but we can still go over it.
Yeah.
Well, since we're
That's
already
it.
at
Like
34
the
minutes,
next.
I'd say we probably should admit it, just seeing as how the others might go.
Well, the second answer, the portions of the script could probably be combined into one. So, shall we move on to that? Because I think we pretty much covered all bases with this, like Stoic and Valka.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, like I said, the point brought up is that animated parents usually suck. Not all the time, usually. So let's talk about animated parents we know and in comparison to Stoick and Valka. So I said in the script here, keep it to two fathers and two mothers. If you have one of each or just one, it's fine too. So, um, do you guys have anything? Because I have one I want to bring up.
You go first.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's not cut around the bush. In terms of animated parents, the worst one, no competition, is Buck Cluck from Chicken Little. Have you seen the movie?
Yeah, I have.
I've seen parts. I know who you're talking about, and I know
Speaking of not
why you
listening
think
as a
so.
father,
Okay, so from Russia's tone, I take it that you're agreeing with me.
yeah,
Okay, so let's go over Buck Luck for a second. Now, just to make sure we understand where I'm coming from, I really liked Chicken Little when it first came out. Today, I see it more as a guilty pleasure, if I'm being nice to it. But even then, the thing that I hated the most about this movie is Chicken Little's goddamn father, because like the things he's like, I can sometimes tell where he's coming from, but at the same time, the things he says to this kid are just like it's not only hurtful to the kid. It doesn't. Not only does it hurt the kid's feelings, but it can like if people said stuff like this to their actual kids, they could scar them for life. Like if my father was like Buck Luck, I wouldn't tell him a thing. I wouldn't care about him. Thank God he's not like Buck Luck. Otherwise, and because let's think about this. Like one scene from the movie. Chicken Little wants to play baseball because he wants to do what his father did. What is the father doing? Not trusting him. Actually, he goes out of his way to tell him, no, you can't do baseball. You can't. Even if you know your kid doesn't fit into something, don't discourage him. You need to support your kid if he wants to try something. And guess what? The only time he seems to be proud of his son is that when he wins the fucking game. And every time he messes up, it's like, no, my son sucks. My son sucks, and I'm embarrassed of him. It's yeah, Buckluck sucks. That's my point. So.
can we
But
add
compare
something
him to
for even more rhyming? Buck,
yeah,
cluck,
it
suck.
actually yeah it does rhyme. You know, maybe that should be the next Disney song. Who knows? But let's compare that to Stoic for a second here. Hiccup, like Chicken Little, wants to be like his father, at least at the beginning of the thing. And then like while Stoic does have his concerns about this, he does eventually come to the point that, you know what, maybe him learning how to fight dragons will do him some good, and he puts him in the dragon classes. Okay, fine. The, there you go. That one thing, that one sentence I just said makes Stoic 10 times better than this whatever is he a rooster or a chicken? I'm not sure. You know what I mean. So
I mean,
the,
considering most chickens are female and roosters are male, I would assume rooster.
well,
Yeah,
so it should have been
this
rooster.
movie is a fraud.
Yeah, it should have been called Rooster Little, confirmed. But yeah, that's the one thing I'll give Stoic any day of the week over Buck Luck, and I'll call him Buck for now because it's easier. He actually tries to support Hiccup even when Hiccup messes up. He's still there. He's still there in order to help him and actually talk to him and be a dad. And you can tell that he's hurtful about it, but he's trying to approach the situation somehow. Buck just said, "Oh, my wife's dead, and she would have known what to do with this." That doesn't work. That doesn't work. I don't care if your wife is dead. You should try and talk to your son and be supportive of him. And when he's doing something wrong, talk to him. Like, I'm not saying you should celebrate it, but at the same time, try and understand where he's coming from, because your son gets fucking bullied. And yeah, before I'm getting way too angry about this, I made my point. Do you guys have anything?
Not on yours. Wolf?
No, nothing on HCs, no. I mean, yeah, nothing really to add to that.
Oh, so good to know. My one choice pretty much summed up the entire thing. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, if I can bring up a good animated mother, which Valka could probably take a few lessons from, Mrs. Brisby from
Darn
Secret of
you!
Nim.
You stole
Okay.
it from me.
Okay, so go ahead. You
Wolf
talk
have it.
about it.
Then let Wolf have it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
That's exact what I had picked, like a good animated mom, Mrs. Brisby from The Secret of Nim, and you immediately stole it from me.
Okay, so talk about it.
Yeah,
I'm giving you the.
For once,
I'm
HC is
giving you
not
the-
actually stealing our ideas. Okay, he
Hey,
stole it,
hey,
but he's
hey,
not letting.
you
He's
st-
not going
you-
into it.
Rush, you stole my joke in the Defenders of Berk episode. Don't
Moving
start
on.
with me.
Because I knew you would make a bad joke out of it. I just had to make a better one.
Also, I just realized I probably got really loud there, so headphone users, sorry.
No, yeah,
I don't know how
that
apologize
sounded
in the
after
recording.
the fact.
That's
No,
how you
it
do
wasn't.
it.
It wasn't too loud. You're
Great.
Yeah, it wasn't too loud.
It wasn't.
It
like
peaked
my
on
deepest
my.
rave.
I see it on my end, and it peaked. So
Anyway, Wolf
Um,
is about to talk about Mrs. Bisbee, which I had no intention of bringing up in this episode. Nope, 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 nope.
she's a great animated mom, right? Like the length she's willing to go to one, help her son get over his sickness, and two, keep her kids safe. Like you see this woman have to run. You see this, mouse have this, female mouse, this mom have to run away from an owl who tries to eat her after talking with them. Have to deal with an entire rat political system. The fact that she's willing to put a huge amount of faith in something that she has no idea what it will or won't do, and whether it'll even help or won't help, to try and save her kids at the very last second at the end of the movie. It's just, she's willing to go above and beyond, and she's more than happy to sacrifice herself or whatever she needs to do to protect her parent, to protect her kids. Like, I loved this character growing up. I still love this character now. And I think
agreed.
For me, that first movie, The Secret of Nim, the first movie, seeing Mrs. Brisby be a single mom.
I'm sorry, there's a sequel?
Yeah. Seeing Mrs. Brisby be a single mom raising, I think it's like 3 kids, to me, that is really, that hits a home a lot, because again, like my mom was a single mom who had to raise 3 kids. So for me, that hits home a lot. So like, I might be very biased in this regard, but I firmly believe like that is an example of a great animated mom. Granted, she does make the choice of saying, well, kids, I'm just going to leave all of you here while I go off on this adventure. But it's for a good cause.
Well,
Again,
she also gets I always assume that she got the shrew to keep an eye on them. I think that's also what happens in the. I think that's also what happens in the book.
Quote unquote nanny, but it's still, she did leave her sick son and her kids to go off to try and do something. So, the scale, give and take, weigh it out how you feel, But I do firmly believe the lengths that she's willing to go to, and what she goes through, and what she's willing to go through, and what she's willing to do and sacrifice for her kids, for her son, I firmly believe sets her apart as a really good mother. Animated wise.
Yeah. And also, I just want to correct you. There is no Secret of Nim sequel. It's a popular belief that there is, but there
You're right.
isn't.
There was two.
No, there's no two. There's only one.
No, there were two sequels that don't exist.
Okay, jokes aside, I don't remember a third one.
Yeah, there was a
Like,
third one.
there's a
Pretty
third
sure there
one,
was a
really?
third one. Yeah, I think there was a
Just like
third
the
one.
Matrix.
Oh, God.
Two sequels that don't exist.
I'll have to look it up. Anyway, so yeah, I guess in terms of, it's kind of funny that we brought up Buckluck and who like Stoick wins in that battle, no questions asked, and in the Battle of the Mothers, Valka loses, no questions asked.
And
so,
here I am bringing up, this is a father that is almost equal in comparison, not in grade wise, but in role and exact, it's basically almost the same father-son relationship, and
okay.
roles here. Remy's father from Ratatouille. He is the leader of the rats.
Yeah.
And he doesn't listen to his son. His son is a dreamer, something, and he doesn't listen to him. And he reprimands him for it. However, he does realize sooner that his son has a special talent in smelling out poison. Of course, that's the only thing he realizes. But, his father is basically, for the good of the clan, the rats. And this is why I chose it. I mean, I know it's a loose comparison, but it's similar in ideas. How
it's similar enough.
Yeah. And yeah, the more I thought about it, I was like, wow, this is weird. But so Remy, let's get the first instance of reprimand. Remy's in the old lady's house trying to get some special food. I can't remember if it was a cheese or something, as opposed to just like junk and stuff. And they barely escape, and his dad basically is like, where have you been? And then his brother, Remy's brother, accidentally, tattles on them, and they get yelled at. And that just shows, he's caring, he's protective, like Stoick. He doesn't want them to get hurt. And this is before, obviously, Remy has an elevated position. It's just his son at that point, and they're just getting trashed. However, once he smells the poison, then then his dad's more interested in him. But then he leaves, or not leaves. He gets separated in the rain, and then blah blah blah, yada yada yada. His dad finally finds him after he's been doing all this stuff in the restaurant, and the first thing his father says to him, or one of the first things, is we haven't had any poisonings yet. It's like, okay, that's one of the, you're glad he's safe, but then you go back to business, really? So, and then he's like, come on, we're going back, and then it goes to the cliche, no, I'm not going back. What? Why not? Blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But those are just the two moments. At first he cares, but then he's still thinking more about the group once he finds his son again. He's like, oh great, you can be our poison sniffer again, even though it's like, I don't want to be one. So in terms of ratings, he's slightly less high on the list than Stoick. Stoick for me is A-, and Remy's father is around a B to a B+.
I think if Ratatouille was really about, because let's also talk about this, that How to Train a Dragon is more about the relationship between the father and the son than in Ratatouille.
Well, yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it gets more of a focus. So obviously the relationship there would be better than Ratatouille. And again, not this in Ratatouille. I love that movie, but building on what Rash said, I think that's also a factor. That the father gets less of a development time because that's not the focus. It's not one of the main focuses of the movie. Great, we agree. Okay. You know what? I wonder. Okay, just one more example of a father, of a bad animated father. Um, Actually, you know what? Are you guys watching the new Tangled show that's on Disney Channel?
No.
Mm-mm.
Are you planning to, or can I spoil something?
No, I
Go
mean,
for it.
spoilers for that show if you're someone who's listening to this and planning on
Okay,
or watching it or what have you. Spoiler alert.
he- yeah,
Go ahead.
here's the thing. If you're watching the Tangled show and you haven't seen the latest episode, the latest two-parter special that just aired, what was it called? A Queen for a Day. If you haven't seen A Queen for a Day in the Tangled TV show, skip a few minutes ahead because I'm about to spoil this. Anyway, so there's a recurring character in the show called what's his name? Varian? Yeah, Varian. For all intents and purposes, he's the hiccup of this show. Like he's eh, again, he's nerdy, he's weird, he makes a bunch of experiments. The only difference is if Hiccup would have majored engineering in college, this guy would have majored chemistry. That's really all the difference. This guy is Hiccup. No way you're telling me he's not. And in that specific episode, we meet his father for the first time. His father is like a guy on one section, the kingdom which Rapunzel is the princess of. And at one point, like there's all these weird rocks have started appearing in his part of the kingdom, which the rocks are a mystery in themselves and everything. So he goes to the king, Rapunzel's father, and he, you know, he pretty much lies to the king about what he's doing there instead of taking care of the problem. So that's already show like the reason I'm bringing this up is because just see how bad Stoick could have been if he would have outright lied to his followers. I mean, and to his son. Can you imagine how much worse Stoick would have been if he was that?
Wouldn't make
I
for a
Mm.
believe so.
good movie.
Yeah, but here's the kicker though. The the father at one point kind of dies. I mean, he gets in like the stones I mentioned before. He kind of gets stuck inside of them. But his son is so desperate to prove himself to his father, kind of like Hiccup was in the first movie, and pretty much every other time in throughout the franchise. And at the end of the episode, where he finds out that his father is quote unquote dead for now, guess what? He becomes the damn villain. Like the episode ends on a cliffhanger, which shows us he's no longer a friendly nerd. He's going to be a bad guy in this show. So and I can't help but think like, do you think the bad parenting might have fucked them up? I mean, it happens. People with bad parents usually end up being not so great people. So I think that's like people say that American parents are stupid and stuff, yada yada yada. But this one, you mentally scarred your kid to not trusting anyone. And yeah, it's not just the father. If you watch the episode, you know this. But I can't help them but thinking that might have been the main motivation behind this. So Tata will share. What do you guys think? Is Stoic wouldn't have been a good parent if he was like that father, correct?
I mean, you kind of threw a lot at us, and I haven't seen enough to
Oh,
really give
sorry.
my yeah. That was about a 5 minute
Basically,
dissertation.
okay, short version, and then Stoic would have been such a good father if Hiccup turned evil because of him.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's pretty
I
simple.
mean,
If
if that's
anybody
what
turns
you
evil
want
because of their
as a
father,
parent, though, then technically, no, you're not a bad parent because you got exactly what you wanted from your kid. You raised them the way you wanted them to be. So, I mean, technically, in that regard, no, you're not necessarily a bad parent.
Well, again, like I said, lying to your son and your followers, and apparently that father has some kind of secret which can solve the problems that we have in the show right now. So I think he's worse than Stoic.
Again, like,
Yeah.
again, no. What I mean is
Maybe,
like if you're a
yeah,
villain raising a villain son, then and your villain son turns out to be a villain and a good one, then technically, you're proud of that because your son is exactly what you wanted him to be, right? So technically,
yeah.
in
But
that
here's the
frame,
thing: the
in that
father.
context, you're not necessarily a bad parent because you raised your kid the way you wanted them to be.
Okay, so
Doesn't
let
necessarily make
me
you a good
let
person.
me
Doesn't make your
so
kid
let
a
me
good
so let
person,
me
but
rephrase that because you might not have gotten me.
oh no, I get you.
That
I'm just saying from that in that context, technically, you could argue it that way.
Yeah, you said if the father's goal was to raise his son to be a bad guy, that's not the father's intent. At least not how the episode showed it.
Yeah.
The son became evil because he felt betrayed by everyone.
Hmm.
But I couldn't help but think that if his father acted a bit differently with him and would actually listen to him and take him seriously, this might not have happened.
Possible, yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of
And you know
speculation.
what?
But I mean, again, like I've not seen the show, so I can't say too much on it.
Yeah, and also,
Yeah.
like I said, this is the latest episode as of this recording, so things might change when other episodes will air, depending if this is going in the direction I think it's going. And you know what?
Speaking of going in the right
And
direction,
yeah,
Yeah,
just one thing. If there's anyone who watches the Tangled show and agrees with me or disagrees with me on this, can you share in the comments? I would actually be interested in hearing that. So,
we've talked about a
uh,
few. We should throw in one or two. We've thrown in a good mother, a bad father. Yeah, I don't think we've had like an example of a really good parent. A good father in animated films. Is there any
you
examples
know,
you want to
you
throw
know,
out?
when I'm thinking of good fathers I mostly think about live action fathers actually. Not
I
like
mean, Nemo.
people have but you know what? Yeah, that's a good father. That's a good
yeah,
father.
Technically, Mufasa.
for the 2 minutes he was in the
Yeah,
movie.
co-
Yeah,
2 minutes.
I mean,
What the hell is wrong with you?
It's an exaggeration
I
for that
mean,
Yeah,
movie.
so
Bambi's parents were pretty decent.
you know something, the father is barely there. Like I know he has a bigger part in the direct-to-video sequels they made, but I haven't seen it, so no
No, I mean for
comment.
what he is, no, he's there in the main movie, and for what he is, like for what he's there to do, he does that. He fills that role
Do
well.
you remember him or the mother? Let me
I
ask you
remember
this.
both, but it's been a long time since I've seen the movie in general. You're
Of
talking about a
course, you
movie that
freaking
was
remember the mother. She gets shot in front of Bambi.
spoiler.
Nothing is more
Yeah,
memorable than
spoiler.
trauma.
Bambi's
Hey,
mom is
hey!
dead. Yeah,
Did you
biggest
hear me?
spoiler in the world.
Nothing is more memorable than trauma. All right.
But I
Yes.
mean, I still remember the father in the role he played as
I
well, though.
know,
But
but HC's
but
point
again,
was,
Yeah,
like
oh,
it's
do
but
you
been
remember the father or the mother? It's like, well, of
yeah,
course you
but
remember the
here's the
damn mother.
thing.
She died.
Here's the thing, Rush. The death of the mother is not the thing that gets you. What gets you is
No,
that
it
she
does
has
get
a
you.
yeah. But it's not the death himself. It's also the fact that she has such a strong connection with her son. So
mhm.
when that comes, that gets you harder. It's not necessarily the fact that she is dead. It's the fact that she was taken from her son, who loved her all so much.
Mhm.
So, and there's a reason why people keep saying Bambi's mom and not Bambi's dad, I think.
But I mean, his dad still plays an important role though, and looking back at it again, it's been a long time since I've seen it. That role is still played fairly well. I would say for that movie, and what he does, like it's not terrible and it's actually decent.
Yeah.
It's definitely
Uh,
different, but it's definitely still good, I would say. And it puts him in this role of he's not necessarily a good father, but he's not necessarily a terrible father either.
Mhm. And thinking about Bambi now more, I seem to recall Bambi being more afraid of him than
His father, if I'm not
I.
mistaken, his father was very strict, very stern, and Bambi definitely takes a very kind of timid role towards him. But it, again, it's been so long since I've seen this movie. Yeah, I'm not gonna even bother. It's been so long since I've seen it. I would probably get way
Yeah,
too much wrong.
same,
It's
But
same.
it's worth
true,
bringing
but
up
it's
parent wise since
right.
Nemo and Bambi both kind of focus on the relationship between a child and their parent.
Mhm.
So it's definitely it's worth bringing those two up as good examples of animated parents to some
Yeah.
degree.
Well, we've really already
Mhm.
compared all of our choices to Stoic and Valka, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I. So you know what? Just a quick question because we kind of touched upon this, but let's go with it anyway. Do you feel like looking at them as parents changes your point of view on them as characters?
Um, I think Wolf really has touched base on this a lot, and what he's saying is basically the same thing that I'm saying. That yes, I mean, if you think about like if what you said, AC, earlier, showing this to a bare bones person or telling what Valka is, it's like they might say, "Oh wow, that's a terrible person," but they're like, "But wait, they're the mom, so we gotta look from that. She really cared for her family. She didn't go." Still, obviously, it doesn't change my view on how crappy that was. But for Stoic, if he's just a regular person, like doing, if he's just the chief, no relation to Hiccup whatsoever, and he's doing all this stuff,
If you take
that's
it all at
kind
face
of crazy.
value, it makes him very much the antagonist and the villain,
And it
even though
also
he
makes him
really
creepy for
isn't.
how much he cares about
Kinda.
Hiccup. But
Mm.
you could. The funny thing is, if you take that out and Hiccup has no parents and he's just a surrogate father, right? Um, but yeah, still, like if they aren't seen as parents, it makes him look way worse. So you have to look at him as parents to get basically what we've already said.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, like you said, we pretty much talked about this. But let me ask you this: how would you improve both characters as parents? This is, I think it probably focuses more on Valka because Stoic might not be coming back in future
Hold
continuity.
on, hold
But
on.
So
Improvement.
even
Breathing again. That's an improvement.
yeah, that's an improvement in his life condition, not as a parent necessarily.
It
even
makes him a
looking at
better parent because he's there for Hiccup still. Sorry, I had to say it. That is a legit. That I wanted to actually say that.
I mean, a lot of people
Beard
would.
won't make him a better parent, I
Anyway,
think.
continue. Sorry, Wolf.
I'm not looking at a lot of people would look at the first movie and say, well, Stoic listening or Stoic actually trying to listen and respect Hiccup. They would say things like that would improve him as a parent. I think that would devalue it. I think the fact that I don't think there's any major way you can improve Stoic as a parent because I think he's already doing the best that he can that he knows to do.
And
So I think it.
And
sorry.
also, I think let's be real here. If we go back to the first movie or the second one, whatever, or even the show, if you improve quote unquote Stoic's parenthood, and then you pretty much shot half the conflict of this movie in the ass
You also take away part
because
of his character. That's what I'm saying. Like it's
Oh yeah,
in his
yeah,
absolutely.
character to do that. So you
Hmm.
can't like.
both points I think are valid in this case because it hurts the movie if you do that.
Looking at Valka though, that one's a bit more difficult. Like eh, eh, changing again, like if you change up again, like being a parent is an inherent part of their character, and this goes for Valka as well. And if you improve her parenting, that would basically say, well, she would have chosen to come back at that point. Like that's an improvement of her being a better parent, her choosing to go back to her family, regardless of what that might mean consequence wise.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that inherently changes the character, though. That inherently changes who she is. That inherently changes a lot of what you would see in the second movie. And I know I've argued that I think the first and that I think the second movie's portrayal of Hiccup and Volka's relationship isn't handled perfectly, could have been done better. So, improvement wise, I honestly think seeing a little bit more conflict between Hiccup and Volka would have been a bit of an improvement. Seeing the second movie not portray that relationship in a way where it almost feels like Volka can just, where a parent can be completely gone from their kid's life, come back later, show them what that kid inherently wants to see, show them, try to buy them back in a way, no matter what it is they're using. I think showing that in that way and allowing it to work is a detriment to the movie and to
That's
how that relationship works.
that's on the
And
kid's
I
part
feel,
though, for
well,
letting
no,
it happen. Really,
no, I don't think it's on the kid's
the
part.
parents trying to win him over. Obviously, if you want conflict, the parent's not going to say, "I was
Eh,
gone for so many years and I'm mad about." No, it's the kid.
I
You
don't
were
blame
gone
the
for
kid
so
for
many
that. I don't blame the
years.
characters for that. I blame the writers for that.
Well, yeah,
I
that's what
blame, like,
I
that's
know.
a fault of the writers. I think inherently most kids would buck, they would challenge that to a small degree. Like, I think you would definitely, at a point, you would accept your parent coming back, a parent who's been gone for most of your life, who you manage to find or comes back into your life at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to accept them back in, but it's definitely going to take time, and you're probably going to challenge certain aspects of who they are and ask more questions and challenge the answers they give you a little bit more because they've been gone for so long. I think seeing a bit more of that from the writer's perspective, seeing them do more of that would have inherently made Valka and Hiccup's relationship a lot more meaningful. It wouldn't necessarily have improved her as a parent, but it would have given us the ability to see more of her reasoning and her mindset, which definitely could have helped bring more understanding than what's there, which I think could have led to a more enjoyable and interesting relationship between these two characters. And when you do finally see them bond, it would have meant more, I
Again,
feel.
though, this is you're saying improving as parents, like
I know that's
that
not what
that
again, that's
whole
not
yeah
what that does.
that whole spiel you went on really wasn't an improvement on the part. That was really a
No.
writer improvement in the child's character, trying to make it better to accept the parent as opposed
I
to what
think
Hiccup had done.
I think it could be to a degree, but no, ultimately it's more an improvement on the relationship of not her parenting skills.
Yeah,
So,
Mhm.
I think it would change some things and certain
absolutely.
aspects of her parenting, but ultimately it's not an improvement of.
And as well, we don't have as
Um,
much data on the fact of her parenting
No,
in.
I think we'll definitely see more as time goes on from the graphic novels and the third film, and that's why I said at the very
When's the next
beginning,
graphic novel coming out again? Dragonvine.
soon,
should be 2018.
February, I think,
Okay, not too bad.
is when it's
Yeah.
coming out.
You
So,
can
like,
go back and listen to our episode about it. We'll probably talk about it there.
Yeah, we need.
absolutely.
To, I'm gonna
um,
start putting. I'm gonna start putting like subtitles on this, like or in the title, because we don't have you doing the on the title card. We don't have your editing
That's what
it
I've been doing.
anymore.
yes, and
Yeah.
You'll see the
yeah,
episodes right in there.
sadly.
Well, so okay, so this will be episode whatever number colon mommy issues.
What?
Maybe something a bit better than that. Yeah.
Parenting and how to train a dragon. There we go. Let's go with this.
Fine if we want. To be
But
boring.
how would
Behind
I
the scenes look at the Berkcast.
Yeah.
you know what? I had something to say. I'm not sure if this would necessarily make her a better parent or something, but you know, I think that if like let's go with the one scene in Serpentine where she's actually trying to, support Hiccup mentally and everything. If if this is something they like expand upon in the third film, which I'm going to assume that Hiccup is going to have some pressure on him in this movie at one point. Something tells me that the entire I left you as a baby and didn't come back to your life until 20 years later. I believe I'm kind of trying to call it. If I call that, yay. If not, whatever. But Hiccup will most likely, I think, could potentially at one point call her out on it, and the way she will react to it, if that will happen, could determine if she improves as a parent or not. In my opinion, also depends on where. Also depends on where she ends the movie, because it could be like Life is Comic, which Rush dubbed, that at one point she could be, you know what, I missed being in the feral life. I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah.
That will like discredit her almost immediately as a good parent. But hey, who said it can't happen? It can happen. I mean,
it's worth remembering, right? Like the reason the movie does what it does in the second movie, the reason why Valka is so easily able to win over Hiccup, even if I might disagree with how it's portrayed, the reason they set it up that way is because Valka is everything Hiccup wants to have and be. That freedom, the ability to just go and not have to worry about anything, to leave, to just be him and Toothless, no one else, no care, no worry, just nothing. That freedom. That's what he desperately craves and wants. But Stoic, however, represents everything he's afraid of, that responsibility, that having to have people depend on you and need you, and you're having to protect them and look after them and help them. Like he's afraid of that. He hates it. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it because it scares him so much. So I personally, I wouldn't necessarily say I expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw the third movie have some form of conflict between Valka and Hiccup in the form of that, where it's Valka's ideals of just, not caring, of being nonchalant, of being free, and just going and doing whatever she wants, whenever she wants. I expect to see some of that, and again, her being very much staunchly for the dragons. I very much see some of that some of her ideals and beliefs clashing with Hiccup, because he's very much kind of in the middle. So he definitely takes from Stoic, he definitely takes from Valka. So I expect to see some sort of clash and a little bit of conflict there in the third movie potentially. Or I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it anyways.
Okay. So just one last question to close this episode on. If we are on the subject of Stoic and Valka being good or bad parents, do you think Spitelout is a good parent?
No.
I think he has his moments of being an okay parent. Like even like you can even see in Race to the Edge, like he actually has a good, in the last season, he actually has a good teaching moment with Hiccup. Technically, it's not perfect.
Yeah,
it's definitely,
but it's Hiccup, not
Low. I know that, but it's still him. It's still him being a good
adult, not a parent.
Yeah, like it's him being a good teacher, a good guide, a good adult. Like he has his moments, but ultimately, I would say no, he's not necessarily the best of parents. Like we've seen how he parents with Snot out here and there, and he definitely, just like Stoic, he has his issues.
But I think it's a bit more glaring with Spitelout than Stoic. I mean,
yeah,
I can see where it comes from also with Spitelout, but he's a bit more harsh. Yeah, I think.
I would say this, right? Like Hiccup has turned into the person he is. Stoic played a large part in turning Hiccup into the person that he is by the second movie. Spitelout, however, didn't play as much of a role, I would say, in turning Not Loud into who he is by the second movie, right? Like, how we see Snot Loud act isn't because of how Spite Loud raised him. I would say it's more so in spite of. Like, Snot Loud's not a terrible human being. Like, he is a good and decent person, though he isn't the best of person 100% of the times. And some of that is because of Spite Loud. But it's the fact that he has the friends that he has, and he's with the people that he's with, and it's because of Hiccup, people like Hiccup, Astrid, and Fishlegs teaching him to do better and be a little bit better, that he ends up being a better person. Not perfect, but he does end up being better.
Right.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to add to that. That was pretty good. Okay, so anything else to add on the subject before we close the topic?
Nope.
Parenting is hard.
Yeah.
For all the
I don't want
parents
to be
out there, good luck. Do the best you can.
Especially the
I
0
love you,
to
Mom.
2 years.
I love
right
you,
now.
Dad.
Don't be jerks.
Seeing how my sister's dealing with my niece and now having that newborn, whew, say I would not like that one bit.
Rush, great uncle, parent.
I'm a great uncle. Oh yeah, no, I'm her favorite uncle. I'm the older one's favorite uncle right now. She sees me and she smiles
Awesome.
instantly. And I'm not joking too. Like, I'm surprised every time she sees me, she smiles and tucks her head.
Awesome. That's adorable.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's been all for this episode of the Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you want to talk to any of us about parenting or whatever other topic, about parenting in the real world, don't. Just none of us has any, like with the exception of Rush, who's an uncle, none of us has any experience with this. So, but if you want to talk to any of us about Stoick, Valka, or any of the other parents in the How to Change Again universe, then you can do that on either the YouTube comment section, on Tumblr, we are Berkcast Team, on Twitter, we are Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. And you can find us all on the Berk from Vine forums. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Rush.
And I've been Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.